Alright, hello and welcome to another YouTube video. Today we are in a lovely empty bike shop. Now I'm at 99Bikes in West Gosford, an excellent store. I work here, but 99Bikes does not endorse this message, right? They don't, I'm not a representative of 99Bikes when I'm not working the sales floor, but I do love the company, and so I shall spruik its products. The most common style of bike that I sell would probably have to be the Hardtail mountain bike. Now we're going to go over a couple of quick examples. So, what makes a hardtail mountain bike a hardtail mountain bike? Well, firstly, any mountain bike has to have some suspension to absorb some bumps, and wide tires, usually over 2 inches wide. These are probably about a 2.2 or a 2.3. And usually have nice chunky lugs on them to grip loose dirt and whatnot. And in the case of a hardtail, it's got a hard tail because it doesn't have suspension in the rear, only suspension at the front. And the suspension in the rear, you can still have some, but it's your legs. You need to kind of sit up off the saddle and use your legs as springs. They're quite good at that. So this one I would say would be the starting point. This is the Merida Big 7 10D. So Big 7 because it's 27.5 inch wheel diameter and a pretty intuitive name. And it's the 10D, 10 for disc, hydraulic disc brake, 10 because it's the start of the hierarchy. It's the starting model. So this one we can get club price 600 smackaroonies. You can go cheaper than this, but I would really start here because you get a good quality frame, plenty of gears. You've got 3x7, 21 gears, and hydraulic disc brakes, which really are awesome because if a dog runs out in front of you or a child on a bike path, then you can avoid running them over, which is excellent. And obviously if you're off-roading, it's really helpful as well. Next up, just these are not all the bikes obviously that you can get. I'm not going to go through everything, but just to give you an indication of kind of the strata. This is the Big 9 200. Merida Big 9 200. Now obviously I really like Merida, I'm a little bit biased toward them. Big 9 instead of Big 7 because it's 29 inch wheel diameter. 27.5 and 29 are really the common sizes when it comes to hardtail mountain bikes, and actually mountain bikes in general. Some dual suspension bikes will have what we call a mullet setup, where it will have a 29er and a 27.5 to give certain geometry. Usually you have the smaller one at the back, big one at the front to make it slacker, get your body weight further back. But with hardtails, usually they're the same size, front and back. So two 29-inch wheels. The 29ers are probably the more common because with a centripetal, I always get them mixed up. With more momentum in a larger wheel, you get better rolling speed for the same effort, carries its momentum. Because adults mountain bikes used to be 26 inch, and now that's more of like a transitionary bike between kids and adults. It's kind of for tweens usually. And 29er and 27.5 are ubiquitous with mountain bikes now, adults mountain bikes. So what are you getting for your club price $1,100 versus your $500 here? As I said, there are a few models in between these two, but what you're getting is an air suspension fork as opposed to spring coil, and you're getting a lovely streamlined 1x drivetrain. Please see my anatomy of the bicycle video about what drivetrain means. Now, why are those two things good? Air fork, 1x drivetrain. Well, air fork, the sag, or to be a little more layman term, the compressibility of the fork is determined by the resistance inside these chambers. Now on this one, there's only springs in here, quite basic. On this one, we've got springs on this side, and we've got air on this side, which means we can tailor it to your body weight. Now, if you're a particularly heavy person, a spring one may compress too much, and when you go over bumps, it bottoms out and it's really, really bumpy because it's already near the end of its tether. And if you're really, really light, the springs may be too tight in your suspension, and you'll be, again, jolting around everywhere because it won't be compressing enough. Whereas with an air suspension one, you actually pump it up like you pump up a tire with a shock pump, specifically a shock pump. And the PSI is relative to your body weight. So the suspension is tailored to you as the rider, which makes for a much, much smoother ride. You also get a lockout on this one. So the spring side, again, no ability to lock out on the cheaper model. You can change the preload, the spring tension a little bit, but you can't lock it out. You can lock it out on here, which means basically this will not compress. It'll basically be like having a rigid fork, like on a road bike. Not quite that stiff, but pretty much. Which basically means you're going to save effort whilst you're riding, because especially when you're out of the saddle, when you're up out of the saddle, your body weight is pushing down on the bike and the suspension is going to compress. You don't want that. That's you losing energy. So if you're going on paved surfaces or a long climb, you want to lock that one out. Otherwise, if you're going over bumps, you're going downhill, then lock him out, keep him unlocked, alrighty, so now these ones are both considered cross-country. I think the big 710D's got, I think it's 100 mil travel, and we've got 120 mil travel with the big 9200. And then after 120 mil travel, then we get into trail. So we go from cross-country to trail. There's a hierarchy of mountain bikes. Go cross-country, then trail, then / down country. Then we've got enduro, and then downhill. And you've got different travel in your suspension based on the style of riding. And that obviously intuitively, that's more increasingly aggressive riding with more travel. Travel being how far this fork, the crown of the fork, can travel toward the, whatever you call this bit, this distance here, that's your travel. On this one here, this is a trail hardtail, 140 mil travel on this one. So this is a pretty sick bike. You also get a dropper post on this one. Pretty cool. So if I push this lever and then put my body weight, oh, you see how it's sprung up there? Post, it's like a gas lift chair, right? When your body weight goes on it and you've got the lever pulled in, it will go down. Then when your body weight is not on it and you pull the lever, spring straight up. Why would you want to do that? Well, mountain bikes are geared toward getting your body weight back so that you can tackle steep descents without being leaned over the front of the bike. You want to get your body weight back, which is best for handling, because you don't want to have yourself go over the handlebars, getting bucked off the seat as it's all bouncing around behind you and end up on the ground. If you can get your body weight over the back of the seat, you're not going to have any anatomical implications either, and you're going to be able to handle the descents much better. Now you do pay a fair bit of money for this kind of setup though, so we've jumped up to $1,700 club price, so it's another $500-600 more than the big 9200. Again, air fork, Suntour air fork. Suntour is kind of like your entry-level brand when it comes to suspension. We can talk about drivetrains more, but you're increasingly getting more gears the higher end you go. Actually, I forgot to mention why one buy is better. One buy is better because essentially it's less maintenance and it's better ease of use, because you can actually get the same ratio. Like this gear is actually probably easier than the easiest gear on this bike. And then the hardest gear on this bike is probably just as hard as the hardest gear on this bike. So even though this one's got 21 gears, you're going to be able to get the same gear range out of this one, but without any of the fuss of having to have two sets of shifters to worry about whilst you're riding. So a lot less clicking and a lot more just riding, seamlessly riding. Alrighty, so another thing, geometry. So as you get more aggressive in your mountain bikes, it's going to be a slacker head tube angle. So we consider the starting point to be here, so that's 45, and usually you're in the mid 60s for mountain bikes head tube angle. Alrighty, so now we're going to move across to dual suspension. dual suspension mountain bike. That one there, that Hardtail, 140 mil travel, 140, 150, is about as much travel as you're going to see in a Hardtail. It's pretty aggressive. Here we are. This is the starting point for dual suspension. This is the Merida 120. Now, counterintuitively, the 120 actually has 130 mils of travel, front and back. That's what makes it a Softail / a dual suspension. Now, the 120 retails for a bit over club price, $2,000. I'm gonna run out of battery life. Anyway, $2,000. Even though it's the starting point, you're immediately starting off with 10-speed Shimano Q's cassette back here, which is pretty decent. And you've got air adjustable Sun Tour, front and back, 130 mils of travel. And comes with a dropper post. We get to see this one in action. Ready? Oh, there we go, beautiful. And you can see obviously when it was down, you'd be able to get your body weight right back over the bike. And you can see how this is kind of raked back to get your body weight back over the rear of the bike. Go back over here. Not as steep, a lot more upright in the head tube angle. Okay, so that's our starting point for dual suspension. Really, really nice. $2,000, obviously a lot of money, but you get a lot for it. This one is particularly the 120-400. There's different ones in the hierarchy. You get the 120-700. A lot more money, but the suspension's better and you get more gears, better quality gears and stuff. Okay, and then the other dual sus we're going to have a quick look at is the 140. Now again, counterintuitively, the 140 has 150 mil front fork and a 143 mil shock in terms of the travel of the shock. Now we get Marzocchi, which is a nicer brand than Sun Tour. Some say it's on par with RockShox, others say it's not so great compared to RockShox, but it performs really, really well. These Marzocchi bombers, they're really cool. Again, this is the base model Merida 140. We're kind of into enduro territory here. 130 is down country / trail, so it's kind of the dual suspension equivalent to the Cube over there. Whereas we're into enduro territory here with 140 because it's got 150 mil front fork. We've got how many gears? 11 speed Qs again. Qs are pretty entry level mech, but it's really good quality. We've got some SRAM DB4 brakes. They're pretty solid, but not really one finger. So the big thing that I value, and I'm not massively into mountain bike, I'm getting more into it. I bought a cross-country mountain bike to do the Convict 100 race nearby in May, and that one's just 120 mil travel, obviously, being cross-country. But the thing that I really love about my bike is the Dior brakes. That's one of the, as far as the componentry goes, like yeah, the 12 speed Dior XT, that's awesome, but the brakes, just being able to use one finger is awesome, because then it allows you to have all the rest of your digits firmly gripping the handlebars. Whereas on this one, you really, because you can see the lever's quite long. The lever's quite long, so you'd have a shorter lever on a Dior one. So this lever will kind of end where my index finger is. Makes it a lot more confidence inspiring when you're descending to just be able to have that one finger braking. Whereas this one's kind of designed for two. It's not as great for going over rough stuff, which is what this bike is designed for. So again, longer travel bikes for more aggressive riding, generally a longer wheelbase as well, because they're designed to go faster over rougher stuff. So you want that long wheelbase for stability, and again, slacker head tube angle. So we've seen the 120 and 140. There's also the Merida 160, which has 170 mil travel, and then there's the 160 free ride, which has 180 mil travel. And so between those ones, you're getting upper end of enduro and then downhill. Sweet. Now, what do mountain bikers wear? Well, we've got, not this stuff up here, this stuff's road stuff. These goggles, mountain bike stuff. goggles, mountain bike stuff. Now these giant goggles are going to buckle over this cool style of helmet. This is a sick ass helmet. This is an $1,100 helmet that's on sale for $500. It's got a carbon shell. It's not that light, even though it's got a carbon shell, but doesn't it look sick? This is the Bell full face. So we call it full face because it's going to cover your full face. Basically, this section here is going to protect your face from getting mangled if you have a bit of an altercation with an immovable object like a tree when you're in the bush. So that's going to be what you want to use if you're using anything bigger than let's say a 130mm travel. If you're on this bike or bigger in terms of travel, you're probably going to want a full face because you're probably going to be doing riding that's pretty intense. You're going to be doing big jumps and stuff like that. I try to avoid big jumps because I would die. Anyway, and then you use these kind of pedals. We call them flats. Flat pedals with these big fat screw things that dig into your shoe and they absolutely munt a normal shoe. So if you're wearing your gym shoes or something, they will tear it to shreds. So you want to get a proper mountain bike flat shoe. Like this. Actually not this, but this is the only example I have. So this is actually a clip one where you put a cleat on it, but just ignore this bit and just look at this tread pattern here. It's the same as the Shimano flat shoe. So these really dense, close, but still chunky lugs, they are perfect for the flat pedals. That's what you want, people. But, take it back out of the box and imagine that the cleat is actually there now. So the cleat mounting thing's there. So this is a clip-in shoe. Only two types of clip-in shoes, people. You've got mountain bike, I'm gonna write it up here on the screen. Mountain bike and road. Mountain bike, 2-bolt cleat. Just 2. Big chunky rubber outsole. Okay, the outermost part of the shoe is the outsole. The foamy bit, you don't really have a foamy bit on a cycling shoe, but the foamy bit usually midsole, right? Rubbery outsole. On a road shoe, 3-bolt cleat. 3 bolts. Killing it when it comes to bolts. Just bolts flying everywhere. And a hard plastic, very slippery surface. That's why you've got your road cyclists are like tiptoeing everywhere because they're not tiptoeing, they're clubbering around like penguins because they've got these hard plastic outsoles coupled with a lovely 3-bolt cleat. Should have gotten this out of the box before. Big plastic cleat. And you can see that's just hard plastic. That's the bit that makes contact with the surface of the ground. That's quite slippery. When these little yellow things wear out, that's the time to replace your cleat, okay? This little groove locks into your road pedal. This is a mountain bike pedal, double-sided, which is handy. Small platform, road one, got broad platform, and big fat spring for your road cleats. Mountain bike cleats, fantastic to walk around in, and you're not really losing much of a performance edge. Are you gaining much of a performance edge with cleats in general? Maybe, some say around 12%, right? 12% power improvement. Okay, so now that we've covered mountain bikes, dual suspension mountain bikes, pedals, and clip-ins, we're going to look at road bikes. So, road's kind of my jam. I love road, although I did crash this morning. I'll put a photo up on the thing. Hope you don't get too grossed out. Road is great when you're not nearly getting run over by a car or you're slipping on a wet bit of tarmac. Anyway, not to put you off. So, this is a flat bar road bike. Now, this is quite a high-end one. There's a Merida Speeder 100. There's some cheaper Merida Speeders that are a lot less money than this. This is $1,050, but I'll do a good price for you, don't you worry. But anyway, this is an awesome bike. Lightweight aluminium frame, hydraulic disc brakes, 3x, I think 8. Killing it, beautiful. Right, what makes a road bike a road bike? Well, when it comes to a flat bar road bike, it's really just the tires and fairly narrow handlebars and not super robust, but still more than sturdy enough for road riding frame is what distinguishes it from a mountain bike. But really, what makes a true road bike a road bike is drop bars. Now, apart from flat bar road, all the rest of road bikes are drop bar. Now, what do I mean by drop bar? Well, because the bar drops down, pretty intuitive, as opposed to flat bar. This one here is the Merida Sculptura Endurance. Now, if we want to talk about Merida, right, we got 3 road bikes to consider, proper road bikes, drop bar road bikes, right? 3. We got the Merida Sculptura Endurance, the Merida Sculptura, just Sculptura, and the Merida Reacto. Now, Sculptura Endurance it's in the name, an endurance bike, which means it's pretty high in the front end, and it's a little bit shorter in the reach. Reach is the distance between, if you go straight up from the bottom bracket, distance between there and the steering, right? The steerer. That's your reach. So it's how far you have to reach. Again, pretty intuitive. You don't want to be too stretched forward like this on a big long ride because it's going to be very uncomfortable for your poor back and your hands, a lot of pressure on your hands, right? I don't want that. Now, if you're doing a big, crazy long ride like 3 Peaks Challenge, down in bright Victoria, and if you're insanely fit enough to do that, then you want endurance geometry. This one here is pretty low down the spec list as far as the Sculptura Endurance goes. This is the 300, but you get a lot of really good stuff for this. So hydraulic disc brakes, cues, we saw cues on the dual suspension bike, so why the heck are they on this? Well, cues, they've made a cues road as well as a cues mountain, obviously, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like a do-it-all group set, and it's pretty solid. Now, road bikes, drop bar road bikes, they're very expensive, right? Just all of them. Like this is a pretty starting point bike, but it's $1,800, right? For this Sculptura Endurance 300. That is really cheap in road bike world. So if you're looking to be on a budget and you want to do mostly sealed surfaces, go a flat bar road bike, or go a mountain bike and put slicks on it. My old Hardtail, my 13-year-old Hardtail mountain bike is a weapon on the cycleways with 2-inch slicks on them. It's awesome. Okay. Now, another thing that makes endurance bike, besides geometry, is wide tires. So we've got 32 mil tires here, whereas on a racing bike, which we're about to talk about, we'll see 28 and sometimes 30. Okay, so that was the Merida Sculptura Endurance, and we said we had 2 more drop bar road bikes. We had the Sculptura and the Reacto. Sculptura and the Reacto have the exact same geometry, but they have different frame designs. Now, in terms of geometry, we talked about the reach and the stack height being how tall the front end of the bike is. So a racing bike is going to have a lower stack height. It's going to be lower in the front end. It's going to have a shorter head tube, be lower in the front end, and it's going to be longer horizontally. So I'm going to have a longer reach and a longer top tube. Okay, but often they've got a pretty short wheelbase though, so they're nimble. Shimano 105, that's 3rd tier group set, people's group set as they say. Awesome bike. Scully 4000, club price $3,000, down from 3.2. So it's kind of your midpoint. Again, 28 mil tires. But super cool bike, really good for your money's worth. Again, road bikes are expensive, but that is what it is if you want to be going quick. Now, this, as I said, a racing bike. If you want to be going fast on really hilly courses, Sculptura is what you want. If you want to be going fast on not so hilly courses, more flat courses, like me, with a fly on my camera, I want to be doing quite flat criterium races, right? Because I'm heavier. That's kind of my jam, is the flatter routes. Go for the Reacto. Now Reacto, why would you go Reacto if they got the same geometry? Why would you go Reacto? Well, because of its aerodynamic design. So we can see that the tube shape is more of a blade than being rounded like a traditional tube. So that means it creates less turbulence with the wind. Right? Exact same money for the Reacto 4000 as the Merida Sculptura 4000. I'll just talk about quickly the different tiers. So obviously, when it comes to the carbon stuff with Merida, it's anything with 1,000 in the nomenclature. So like the Sculptura 400, that is aluminium alloy. The Sculptura 4000, that's carbon. All right, so anything that's got 1,000 in it. So you've got for the Sculptura and the Reacto, you've got the 4,000, 6,000, 8,000. Sometimes there's a 9,000 and a 7,000, but it kind of comes and goes with the season. And you've got 10,000, the 10K, and then you've got the Team Edition as well. The 10,000 is actually usually higher spec than the Team Edition. I'd say the 6,000 is the sweet spot. The 6,000 model in both the Sculptura and the Reacto, because you get electronic shifting, and which is not, it's not life-changing, not the most incredible thing in the world, but it's pretty cool to have. 105 is fantastic. You get 105 on the 6,000 models, and you get carbon rims. Carbon rims are huge money. They're like $2,000 by themselves, right? So getting carbon rims on a bike at the price point that you find the Sculptura and the Reacto 6000 is awesome. 8,000, not as good value. For me as staff it is, but for everyone else it's not as good value. 9,000 really isn't very good value at all. Same goes for 10,000 the team. Because if you look at the Reacto 8000, which is the one I got, versus the 9,000, there's around $2,000 retail price difference for 300 grams is all you gain. It's got the same group set, both have Ultegra, but it's almost got the same rims. There's 100 grams in the rims, and you get the fancier frame, but the frame's only 200 grams lighter, right? So it's almost, and it's got the same bars. So it's almost the same bike. So there's really diminishing returns in these. So you could just go the Reacto 4000 or the Sculptura 4000, but they've only got aluminium rims, and as I said, you can pay like $2,000 for rims. So it can really be worth it upgrading from the 4000 series to the 6000 series if you're going to value the carbon rims. Why are carbon rims good? Well, they're more aerodynamics. They're going to cut the wind because they're deeper. Right, often deeper. These are what, maybe 35s, even if that. Often you'll get like a 45 or a 60 mil deep rim. It's going to cut the wind better. But additionally, it's going to be stiffer, because the thing that really flexes in the wheel is the spokes. And you want a stiff bike, right? If you can shorten the length of the spokes, because more of it is the actual rim itself, the carbon rim, then it's going to be a stiffer wheel. And the more direct power transfer you have from your pedals to the tarmac, the better. A quick word on that, when it comes to rolling resistance of your tires, wider is better up to a point. You can look at bicyclerollingresistance.com. You can look at GCN videos. They do a lot of interesting stuff on this. If you got a bike from 15 years ago, say, it probably had 23 mil wide tires on it. Whereas now on a racing bike, you've got 28s. And that's because counterintuitively, more rubber on the road at a lower pressure actually absorbs the tiny little bumps that you get if you had a narrower tire at higher pressures. That means your tire is actually making contact with the road more of the time, which obviously means you've got direct power transfer more of the time instead of actually being literally airborne, where your energy is going nowhere. And it's just these tiny little micro bumps over imperfect surfaces. Whereas on the velodrome, we'll have a look at the track bike in a sec, on the velodrome, really narrow tires are still better because you're riding on a near perfect surface on an indoor velodrome. All right, so that is drop bar road bikes done. So we've had the Sculptura Endurance, the Sculptura Normal, and the Reacto. Sculptura and Reacto being the racing models. Didn't really look into the strata of the Sculptura Endurance. You can look into that. Basically, you get roughly the same thing for the equivalent model in the Sculptura and the Reacto, but for a little bit more money because they import less of them into Australia. There's like less, economies of scale. All right, last drop bar bike before we look at track, which is a very tiny market, not many people are going to be looking at anyway, is gravel. So gravel, unlike track, is quite big. or it certainly was. It was booming for a while there. What is going on here? We've got knobby tires and no bar tape. Sorry, I'm in the middle of building this bike, so I haven't done the bar tape yet. I did this one, semi-shoddy job, but anyway, it's the first one I've done, so be gentle with me. Anyway, this is called the Silex. Silex is the gravel series from Merida. Now gravel, it's a bit of a, cringe sounding gravel. Oh, it's not quite mountain, it's not quite road, it's gravel. It can be a complete waste. It depends what your use case is. So for me, it's the perfect commuter along bike paths where you've got kind of a rough but sealed surface and you're on and off grass to get around people. And plus I've kitted mine out with bike packing stuff, so it's a really good tourer because it can do road really well, but also do some fire trails and stuff. But be under no false impressions that it's going to cope with really gnarly single track or fire trail the way a mountain bike would. If you want an all-round bike and don't want to spend big money, go a hardtail every single time. Hardtail mountain bike. Because really, I think the starting point for a good gravel bike, you can get really cheap ones for like $630, but there'll be cable disc that'll pull all the way to the bars. You'll have a lot of like warranty issues with them. They're often not very good quality, and that's not anything against a particular brand. That's at that price point, drop bar systems don't work very well. So I think the starting point should be the Silex 400. It's aluminium frame, but it's got the GRX group set, which is Shimano's gravel specific group set on it. It's got the 400 series. There's a 400 and the 8200 series. GRX 8200 series is lovely. I've test ridden one. It's kind of like Ultegra and 105. Ultegra is great to have, but 105 is fantastic. It's fine. It's hydraulic. It's a 2x10 setup. You've got a really nice, good, reliable, wide gear range. I would probably like a slightly wider cassette. This is only a 36, I believe. I've got a 42 that I'm going to put on mine. 42 teeth. Obviously, the more teeth you have at the back, the easier it is to pedal. So you want a really big cog at the back for your granny gear. But anyway, I would go the Silex 400 is a starting point for a good gravel bike, and that's around $2,000, right? So that it's definitely a high barrier to entry when it comes to gravel, and it's not. You do need a specific use case for it to be a good decision, unless you just really want a gravel bike and you've got money to burn. Anyway, cool bike. This is the Silex 4000, so it's the carbon equivalent. This one's a bit of a rip-off, honestly. I wouldn't buy it. I get really good prices, thankfully, as staff, so that's the model I've got. But it's got the same group set as the 400. It's carbon, but it weighs almost the same amount as the 400, so it's pretty much straight up a waste of money, because all you're paying for is the carbon frame, which pretty much weighs the same, which is meant to be the point of carbon. It's meant to be lighter, right? So I really wouldn't bother with the Silex 4000, maybe the Silex 6000 or 8000. If you're happy to spend the money, you get some really great upgrades with those. But the 4000 is probably a bit of a waste. The Silex 700 is really cool too. That's the upper echelon alloy one. That's got the higher end GRX group set, but still on an alloy frame. Some people worry about having carbon off-road because with cracks and whatnot. So if you want that peace of mind, if that's something you're concerned about, then the Silex 700 is a really good option as well. But yeah, you've got hydraulic group set, nice chunky. You've got much chunkier hoods on a gravel bike than you do on actually 105. It's quite similar to 105. Ultegra, they're very, very slender. So yeah, 45 mil tires is what we've got on this instead of 28s, but clearance for 30 on these guys. And you can fit up to a 47 on the Silex. On some cubes and other brands, you can fit 50s or even bigger, like 2-inch. You can have these super cool, crazy expensive, like massive long tour setups that people use to like cross Europe and cross America and stuff. They're awesome. Usually they go really, really wide tires for that because it's more comfortable. But basically, yeah, this is your all-rounder bike. It does everything kind of well. but it doesn't do anything exceptionally well. There are gravel races, that's a specific thing, and so if you're into that, go for it. A quick little word on why race geometry, right? Why be lower? Well, obviously you get into a more aggressive position. Why is that better? Well, you're in a war against drag, right? You've even got CFA, CFD, coefficient of drag, when it comes to road bikes. People have, brands invest millions and millions of dollars a year in having wind tunnel testing done on their bikes with riders in different positions. 80% of your drag comes from you. Only 20% is the bike. So you can optimize the absolute heck out of your bike and get carbon one-piece bars to, oops, sorry, that's gross, my big grotty hand. You can get carbon one-piece bars to get rid of all your cables, so you've got no drag at the front of the bike in that way, or less drag at the front of the bike. But 80% of the drag is coming from you. So that's why you have the aggressive riding position, to get you down low and narrower. Often narrow bars are good too, so that less of you is in the wind, right? So that's the point of the racing geometry, is less drag. We don't have any time trial and triathlon bikes in the store, but that's why time trial bars are so cool, because they get your arms right in together rather than out here on the handlebars, which decrease the surface area, your surface area in the wind a great deal as well. You can, provided you've got normal aluminium bars, like on this Silex, or like on either of those bikes, you can get clip-on aero bars, which are cool. So then that gets your little time trial position. If you're kind of an aspiring triathlete, getting a mid-range road bike and putting some TT bars on it, really good idea. Really efficient. Much better than getting a time trial bike, which are crazy money. Very, very expensive bikes, what they are, considering they don't climb very well. They don't climb hills very well. Like the Reacto, the aero frames, it's better on flat. As I said, it doesn't climb as well as the Sculptura. Much more so even for a time trial bike. It's great on the flats. It's awesome. Got super deep head tube. It just cuts through the wind, but you can't really ride it in groups because you've got the TT bars. You don't actually get access to the brakes when you're on the TT bars, the time trial bars. And they're heavy and they don't climb hills very well. So they're specifically for flat time trial and triathlon routes. Time trial bikes and triathlon bikes are very, very similar. I'm sure there's some geometry differences, but mostly it's going to be that you've got storage and stuff on a triathlon bike. But as a time trial bike, you don't need storage because it's often pretty short events. Whereas with triathlon, like if you're doing an Ironman, you're on the bike for 180 kilometers. It's a pretty long ride. Our last drop bar bike, still got a drop bar, is track bikes. Now, what is a track? Well, when I say track, I mean a velodrome. So you can have an outdoor one like we do across the road here at West Gosford, or you can go to an indoor one like down in Bankstown, or they're all over the world. On an indoor one, there's like a minimum speed. You've got to do at least 25 k's an hour. Those you're actually going to slide down the ramp because they're on like a 45-degree banking. It's kind of crazy. When you're going fast though, it's awesome. The G-forces into the corners and stuff. It's crazy. It's scary, but it's cool. Anyway, so this is all about speed. So can't really demonstrate, but there's no free hub in here. There's no brakes and there's no freewheel. So to slow down, you have to reverse your pressure on the pedals. So instead of pushing down on the pedals to make you go faster, you've got to push back here and resist the forward movement of the chain. And you unbolt these routinely and put different sized chain rings on and different sprockets at the back. You're always unbolting and rebolting stuff onto these bikes to get the gear configuration measured in gear inches that you want based on the different event that you're doing. Because like you might be doing a scratch race, which is a bit longer, more like 20 plus laps of the velodrome, or you might be doing a sprint, which is like 2 laps, or you might be doing a Kieran, which is like 6 laps, but really 3 laps flat out. And you want a much heavier gear if you're doing the shorter events, because you want just max speed as opposed to more lower intensity for a longer time with the longer events, obviously. So you're going to want to run a smaller gear in those instances. So 60 tooth, it looks cool and big, but it's actually not that formidable. Like a lot of people, like the pros will run, 70 plus. But a lot of people will run like 63s and stuff. Crazy long stems because, as you were saying, aggressive geometry, right? We want to be really stretched out, but see how it also angles up a lot. So I've got 170 mil stem on this, but 6-degree rise there. And I actually need to be higher by having some sprint bars, which will bring it up a little bit higher, because lower isn't always better. So although I just said with the sculpture and the Reacto, you want to be low and stretched out, there is actually growing wisdom that if you're flatter rather than angled down a little bit on your bike, there's less drag. But anyway, race geometry is still going to be quicker than endurance, but racing bikes are probably going to be having a bit of a higher stack in years to come. Okay, so that is road / drop bar / gravel / track / flat bar road, all done. The last category really is hybrids, like commuter bikes. And I'm just going to really briefly touch on these. Not because they're not good. In fact, they're definitionally an all-rounder hybrids, right? They're commuters. You've got this more flat bar road, this guy, but you can see like this one here, Pedal Raven. Look at that, flipping good value. This guy, he is only 400 smackaroonies. 400 smackaroonies. You got a nice little bit of suspension. You got plenty of gears, probably about 21 gears there. You got a reasonably lightweight frame. That thing is gonna be your absolute dream on cycle paths at a nice entry level price point. And that one's kind of indicative of a commuter style bike. I'm not gonna get into too much detail on the commuter style bikes. You can spend a lot more, but why not just have an entry level price point like that one for those that are interested in that. Alrighty, time for kids bikes real quick. So, say you want a kids bike, right? Say you have some lovely children that definitely should be paying rent even though they're only 4 years old because your interest rates are insane. It's horrible. I still live at home, I'm 25, and my parents should probably charge me more rent. They're very kind. The economy's kind of cooked. Anyway, that's besides the point. So, this one here is very informative. I always get the kids to stand against this thing and then we're sorted. So once you get up here, you're looking over here to your 26-inch bikes, which are kind of like your transitionary bikes between kids and adults. But all this can get a little bit confusing. So we got 12 overlapping with 16, overlapping with 14, 20, 24. Rule of thumb, go the biggest one possible, right? So if your kid is here, don't go the 12. Definitely don't go the 12. Maybe the 14, but the best decision, definitely go the 16. So if there's any parents watching this, I just really want to convey the importance of getting your kids to transition off training wheels as early as possible. So I know that's easier said than done, and this is coming from someone who doesn't have kids, but if you can find the time, you will thank yourself later for getting your kids off training wheels. Because a lot of parents will come in and they'll need a 20 or a 24-inch bike, and their options get really cooked when they need a bike with training wheels. Because 20 and 24-inch bikes don't come with training wheels. So if you can get your kid to be off training wheels by the time they need a 20 or 24-inch, that'd be great. Because you can attach training wheels to 20s, you can't attach them to 24s. You can attach them to 20s, but you're quite limited in your options. So say you want a 20-inch bike, right, with training wheels, you'd have to get one with usually a steel frame. And look, there's nothing wrong with this bike. If this is what you want for price point, fantastic. It's only $250 for this pedal strike, fantastic. But if you're forced to get this bike instead of a different one, it might be a bit annoying, and let me explain. So This has a nice long axle with multiple wheel nuts on it, right? You've got 3 wheel nuts there. That's important. We need that. We need that length to be able to put the training wheels on. If you don't have that, you can't put the training wheels on. Simple as that. So the bike next to it, way cooler bike. It's got suspension, it's got cable disc brakes, it's got 7 gears, and gears are epic because you get up hills. And even as an ancient 25-year-old, I love the sense of achievement you get from climbing up the top of a big hill on your bike. Now, your kid's not going to get to experience that for a lot longer than they otherwise could have if they're stuck with a 20-inch bike with training wheels. Because the 20-inch bikes that can take training wheels are always fixed gear. So, only 1 cog there versus the 7. So this setup where you've got the 3 nuts that can fit the training wheels on, that's always the fixed gear ones. So if you need a 20-inch bike and you need training wheels, it's got to be one without gears. Bikes with gears can't take training wheels. And it's better to do that. So ideally what you should do is when they're really, really little, like a toddler, get them on a like a strider, one of those balance bikes. That allows them to get the skill of balance, and then put them straight onto like a little 12 or a 16 inch, a little 12 or a 16 inch, and just have them never ever use this. Never have them use training wheels at all, because they've already developed the skill of balancing on the balance bike, right? Pretty cool. A lot of times parents will do the right thing and get them balance bike, and then they'll put them on a bike with training wheels, which is really a backward step. The other thing to mention is you could just start them on a 12 inch if you don't want to bother with balance bike. Start them on a 12 or a 16 with training wheels, cool. And then make sure by the time they've outgrown the 12 or the 16, especially the 16, get them off the training wheels. So then by the time they're ready for a 20-inch bike, they don't need training wheels. So they can get a geared bike and get up some hills and get the excitement that comes from climbing hills. So anyway, that was a bit inarticulate, but I hope you get the idea there. I think that will do as far as what I have to say about this. Briefly though, a lot of parents ask me, why am I spending so much more money for this kid's bike over this kid's bike? Usually it's 2 things, maybe 3. You've got robustness, you've got the quality of the bearings, which makes it easier for the kid to pedal, obviously, and you've got the lightweightness. Often robustness and lightweightness don't go together though. In the case of the Neos, these are our fanciest ones, the Napoleon almost said, the Apollo Neos. You pay, $500 for a 20, about $650 for a 24. They're very lightweight aluminium alloy frame, plus they're very robust, but they're big money. If you go something like a Silverback, this one's fancy because it's got suspension and cable disc brakes, but generally a Silverback, like say this little guy, generally a Silverback is going to be really sturdy, but quite heavy. The bearings will be good though. Then you've got something like the Pedal Hoot. Pedal Hoot is kind of a good all-rounder. As far as the 99Bikes 99Bikes offering goes, I would go for an aluminium alloy pedal branded bike, because Pedal is our in-house brand. They're designed in Brisbane, made in Asia like everything is. They are light because they're aluminium alloy. They're usually pretty decent with their bearings, and they're quite robust for a good price. They're probably the best all-rounder, I would say, because the better quality ones, they are heavier, a lot heavier, and that's going to be pretty hard for your kid to pedal around. Okay, quick one on little kids bits and bobs. So you can attach this to the kids' handlebars because frame's too small for water ball cages. That is my not so quick guide to bikes. I'm sorry if it was incredibly inarticulate, but that is my attempt. That is my attempt at a quick guide to a lot of different types of bikes. We've also got e-bikes. That's going to be a separate video because I need to go home. I'm tired and my leg is hurting from crashing my bike. Alrighty, hope you enjoyed or at least learnt at least one thing. We just want to learn one thing per video at least, especially if it's a long one. Alright, thank you very much. Bye.